I don't see Jan yet.
I do.
Oh, she's right there.
I'll let you let her in.
There we go.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. This is the regular meeting of the Hideout Town Council, December 12th, 2024. And public hearing. Sorry, and public hearing. Are we having a public hearing?
Yes.
Okay. Yep. I'm calling the meeting to order. I'm going to call roll. Chris Byer,
Here.
Carol Hazelton,
Here.
Ralph Severini,
Here.
Jonathan Gunn.
Here.
Okay, and Bob Nadelberg is excused. We do have 4 members of council, which constitutes a quorum. So we can begin the meeting. The first item for discussion is the approval of the November 14th, 2024 minutes. Apparently the link in here goes to, no, this is it. Okay, it just looks like the meeting. Okay, here we go. Let me make it a little bigger. If anybody has any comments on any comments on the minutes from council.
Outstanding is my comment.
Sounds like no comments. I don't see any hands up or nobody from council commenting. So if we don't have any comments on the minutes, then I will look for a motion to approve the minutes of the November, what was the date? There it is, November 14th, 2024 meeting.
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Carol.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ralph. Okay, Jonathan?
Yes.
Okay. Chris?
Yes.
Thank you. Ralph
Yes.
and Carol.
Yes.
Okay, minutes of the November 14th meeting are approved. Let me get out of this and back to where I'm supposed to be. Which if I can get this thing to get me to the top of the page, I'd be really happy.
Yeah, there's some follow-ups, Phil. So I had a few comments here.
Okay. So did you have so there it is, item 4, follow-up. So yeah, let's get into those, Ralph.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone else, I just caught a few here on page 4, line 2. We talked about prioritizing the financials, which were actually sent out before the meeting, but I don't think they officially became part of the package. Are we going to, since they're not on the agenda, are we going to talk about them at some point soon? Because we're certainly at the middle of the year. There were a couple of items in there that struck, that hit me, where there was just some big separate percentages. So what's the next step on taking a look at where we are in our finances?
Yeah, Jan, you want to address that? Because I also wanted them on the agenda this month, and I think she said we're going to do something in January, but I'll let Jan cover that.
Yeah, we're still getting Jamie up to speed. So she's planning to get more involved in a variety of things. And I was told by our auditor that we don't need to address publicly, quarterly. It just needs to be addressed by the council. But, you know, talking to Polly today, we can post our financials on the website if, you know, if that seems
Well, we have to, by law, post our financials on the website. It's not optional.
right annually. But if you
No,
want them
quarterly.
no, quarterly, I need to circulate it to council members. But we'll get more information out. Do you want to discuss
Yes,
financial
I'd like it once a
Okay.
quarter in front of
in,
council
in public meeting?
in a public meeting, but
Okay.
not for comment, but for presentation. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, all right,
So in January, we need to discuss the first and second quarters of 2024-25.
Yeah, I'll just point out two things that I saw and then we can move on. I don't want to make this, you know, since it's not officially on the agenda, but there was a variance of one item for 2,300%, 2288. And then the numbers for our license and permits seem to have a more accelerated trajectory. So I thought that would be useful to understand where that's going. You know, so again, it's not on the agenda. I just picked on it because it was part of our, and we did get a report, and that's what I was looking at. And it was in, you know, as a follow-up from our last meeting. So before the next meeting, that would be really useful to understand where those bigger variances are. And then, you know, one's positive. I think one might not be so positive. So want to look at those two things particularly. Jan, does that make sense to you? Do you know which ones I'm
yes,
talking about?
yes, yep,
Thanks.
So yeah,
So
I really believe that we should be doing this quarterly with council in an open meeting, regardless of what the audit says.
yeah, I mean,
happy to do
you
that.
know, yeah, just knowing where things like, you know, are we getting more doors? Is that creating more revenue? What does that look like? The economy's changing, you know, and interest rates are changing. They really affect, you know, a young town like ours. So the other couple of other items real quickly on this, on page 6 of 10, line 34, you know, maintaining more, this came up twice in our last meeting, maintaining more awareness. So just a suggestion, I don't know, we'll have to think our way through this, but maybe we have a rotating approach to maybe attending the planning commissions. So it's not one person or two persons, but, you know, maybe we all get a feel for that as to, you know, cross-pollinating ourselves with, you know, the planning commission, especially with what's going on with what we're going to hear later with SP 174. So again,
of us being residents or as a council? Are you
I was
talking?
thinking, yeah, Chris, I
Out
was
of the
thinking
council.
maybe, yeah, the council member, one council member, as we talked about last meeting, would attend the planning commission. I mean, I think we've all attended those before, and maybe we do that at a rotating, particularly for those items that may come up in the planning commission that are directly now reflective of not going in front of council. So if it's a rezone, it's going to come in front of council. But if it's a standard residential, and from what I gather, it's, you know, it can be one home or one townhouse, you know, a couple of townhouses, or it could be 100. So I didn't see any limits in SB 174. So, you know, certainly for something above a certain size, we could figure that out or talk about it. You know, we have, you know, certainly want to have a council member attend those meetings where that comes up. Anyway, food for
Well, I
thought
just
on
want
that.
to remind everybody, you can watch the full meeting on YouTube afterwards. It's recorded and posted if you just can't be there in person or, you know, in live, I should say.
Well-
So we can do that as well. Anybody can do that.
I just think, Chris, what we talked about is because the decisions are being made at the planning commission level and the council doesn't get a reflection, if you want to be, if we want to have, you don't have to show up in the room, but I think if you want to be part of the dialogue where that, what the final specs of a specific development is being debated, then you can't watch it the next day because you miss your chance to feedback.
Right, but we would just be a member of the public, right? We're not there in any official capacity. We would be
No.
member of the public to give our input like everybody else when the matter's in front of the planning commission. Is that what you're
Oh, I see
suggesting?
what you're saying. Okay.
Because
Yeah, that's true. However, it then would mean someone we would carry no more weight than anyone else, but I think it would be a really good idea. And as you're saying, Phil, if we listen to it, we won't be there when it's open for public
Right.
comment.
Exactly.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm not saying each of us has different viewpoints about different things, but I think where there's an important element, that's related to residential development, that could be pretty big. I think somebody should be there. Yeah.
Well, Ralph, I think the intention of the legislature is to remove the council, right? And have we're gonna get to this eventually in our public hearing, but I just think, yeah, I encourage everyone to attend the planning commission. And provide input, and I think council members, as the members of the public, should do the same thing.
I'd like to hear from Polly as to, are there any risks of any of us attending individually as citizens and making comments? Are there any risks attendant with that, or are we completely in the clear by expressing our personal, if we make it clear that we're commenting in our personal capacities?
Yeah, this is Cameron. I'm covering for Polly tonight,
Oh.
but the answer is unless as long as there is not a quorum, so less than a quorum for the council, you can comment in your personal capacity and participate as a member of the public. You clearly don't want to put your finger on the scales officially with the planning commission until the matter is before the council, right? But you don't
It's
give
never
up.
going to be in front of the council. That's the
Yeah,
whole
it would never get in front of us.
Well, yeah, obviously it depends on the issue, right?
Yeah.
Some of the recommendations that come from the planning commission go to the council. Some of the land use issues are exclusively set by the legislature with the planning commission. So the way that the council would put their finger on the scale in the areas that don't come to it are in the general plan, the zoning, that kind of thing. And so there is some give and take, but when you take an elected position, you don't give up your right to act as a citizen. Like Jonathan indicated, it's just clear. You want to be clear that you're acting and commenting as a resident, as a citizen, not necessarily in your official capacity.
So I guess Jay's on. I'd like to get his thoughts on this because we had this. I guess we're going to have this dialogue in a few minutes anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But
My point is, I just want to make sure that we're not creating some kind of problem. That's all.
so Jay, maybe you can address that when we talk about
Yeah,
that.
if you want me to comment now, I'm happy to,
Sure.
or just wait
just-
more in the context of that. However, I'm here, so
Yeah, then go ahead and comment now. Let's just get that.
yeah. I mean, I think that you are the best situated to know what your role or participation may be taken as, and that's a political consideration. But Cameron's absolutely right. You have the right to participate, and I would just say, echo. Was it Chris who's in the office there? Yes, you can participate. That's a large part of why you're in the roles that you are, and just encourage you to be clear about what your role is at that time. You're a member of the public during a public hearing. That's who you are. So,
Well, I think my concern is, I guess this is addressed to Chris to some degree, is the connectivity between the planning commission and the town council is, a brief update whatever Thomas brings to us and a brief update. Well, Thomas isn't going to be bringing anything to us until we'll see, unless we do planning, I guess we could do updates from the planning commission before they get to that approval point, and maybe we feedback there. I don't know. Thomas, your thoughts about what you think the process should be as far as the connectivity to council?
I do think it's important to remember that we're taking, the way we're moving this ordinance is to the most robust that we can pursuant to the state law. And so while state law had recommended that they try to keep everything very administrative in terms of a review, which would just keep it with town planner, town staff, town engineer, we've taken it as far as they will let it. And that is, it will go to the planning commission for preliminary review and approval. After that, there is a public hearing, but after that, it does come back to staff, town engineer, town planner, and we work through the details before final approval is given. So there is some time after that, but I agree with both Cameron and Jay. If council wants to hear a subdivision, and have a better understanding and provide input, you can I think you can go as a citizen of the community and as a resident of the community and make comment. But that is not the final vote. It does have to go to final approval with town planner, town engineer, town administrator.
Right.
Guess we'll get to all that in the public hearing, right? When we go over the.
Okay.
So part of this was just to comment on having, making sure that we have some participation. So it doesn't sound like we want to do, a round, like a round robin on the council for that. But I guess, anybody who wants to attend, particularly for those subdivisions that will not go to council, but that could be significant. And so we'll just leave it up to,
I would love to assign someone, Ralph, or get a volunteer from the council that would show up. I think the problem with round robin is you lose continuity on a particular subject. So,
Yeah, that's a good point too. Yep.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I was just trying to make it easy where,
I don't know.
Bob and I travel a fair amount in our jobs. Although I made all my, planning commission meetings when I was on there, except for one, I think. But the point being is, I know I'm not going to put anybody's name in here, but a couple of us, I think 3 of us have all served on the planning commission.
Right.
So that could be useful.
Yes.
So put my name in the hat, Phil.
Well, I just think maybe, Ralph, to share it, maybe if you want to rotate, we rotate on different proposals coming to the planning commission. So
yeah, that could be a good way to do it too.
if
so
you
follow one proposal.
Yeah, if you take the Salzman property to the end, for example, and
exactly.
And then
that wouldn't even come up because that includes commercial. So that
all
would
right.
always
Well,
come
I understand. I'm just trying to throw out a piece of dirt.
Yeah.
Okay, and then somebody else takes whatever the next one is, So there's a way to do it that way too. But yes, I would love to see somebody from the council be there, in whether you're acting as an individual capacity, that certainly the planning commission will know who you are and maybe listen more acutely when you're speaking.
Would you please clarify the issue about the quorum? Are you saying that if there are 3 of us there, which constitutes a quorum, that's not possible, that it could only be 2 members of the council there at any time?
That's a really good question, Carol, because it's already a quorum. It's already a public meeting. So I don't see why it's any issue to have however many people are listening.
Yeah, and
As individuals.
I can answer that if you want. So a quorum is, more than two of you at an open meeting where you vote and take action. So it's conditional on all those things. So every council member could be at a planning commission meeting and could speak as a private residence, but the council is not voting on action, so it's not going to be a
Right.
public meeting for the council. It would be a public meeting for the planning commission.
Right, and they're already public anyway, so I don't see why it matters how many of the council members happen to join the planning commission.
Thank you.
That even makes it better if we wanted to, yeah.
Okay, what else you got for follow-up, Ralph?
Yeah, sorry to, didn't mean to drag that down, but I think it's because, Tony also brought it up last time around. So really worthy of follow-up now that we have, this new law in place. Hold on. There was a couple of other quick items. The survey that's online, we talked about last time for the for Ross Creek. I think just wanted to remind everybody, Alicia, does that come down on the 20th?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so the last day for everybody that anyone, had not filled out a survey or not come to the open house meeting needs to get the survey in by the 20th. That's the day it closes, correct?
That is correct. And I'll be shutting it down like at midnight. So,
Yeah.
they'll have until then. Carol Custerly is also going to be sending out an email reminding people that the survey is still up and active.
Would that come out in our newsletter? Or maybe we can get one out before the 20th to remind people to, if they want to participate, they can.
Yep. I think she's working on that right now. So.
Could I interject here that I have information too that needs to get to Carol Custerly for an email or a blast on the transportation schedule?
Okay, let's
so
get
I
it up,
just-
Carol, when you're ready. We'll get it.
I mean,
Just,
it's ready to go. I can contact her tomorrow and
Yeah.
give her all the information so that
Is
maybe
it-
she could do it all together.
Yeah. Or do them separately because we're addressing two different things, but that's great. Whatever the communications folks think we should do, we'll do that's what we're paying them for.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was the end of mine. In fact, Carol just picked up the ones that the last two, which were in her patch, so to speak, sharing the schedule and I guess the app when they became available,
Okay,
which was on page 9, lines 27 through 31.
okay. Anybody else have follow-up items from the November 14th minutes? Okay, thank you, Ralph. Brought up a number of good points. The next item is kind of weird, but because we're doing it at the beginning instead of the end, at the behest of the Planning Commission. So one question for you, Thomas, and to talk with the Planning Commission about is, since you're at the council meetings, do you want to do the Planning Commission stuff? And that way they don't have, because they were complaining that they have to sit through the whole meeting to talk for their, 2 minutes. So we're going to try it at the beginning and see how it goes. But that's just a thought of, but maybe we push it back towards the end because sometimes, we could skip it if we ran short on time. It's one of the easier things to defer if there's nothing crisis level on any of these committees.
I'm more than happy to always give the council an update, and it could be that maybe if a planning commissioner wants to give it and they happen to be, at that meeting, and we do end up putting this at the end, maybe they're there to give it. If they're not, I'm always there as a backup. So I'm more than happy to do that.
I'll talk about it with the folks, but all right. So we've got Joel with us tonight in person, live in Hideout Town Hall. So I'll turn the first update over to Joel.
Cameron's over here.
There we go.
Right there.
Yeah, it's right there.
Thank you, Mayor, council, members of the public. My name is Joel Pieper on the Planning Commission. Just a quick update from our November 21st meeting. The first item, which is now on your plate, was the discussion and recommendation regarding Senate Bill 174 and House Bill 476. Adjustments, amendments to that, including technical corrections, amendments to Town Code Titles 3, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. After discussion on that, a motion was made to make a positive recommendation, and that motion passed 3-2. So I believe that is on your plate as of tonight to discuss that. So it did pass a positive recommendation 3-2. The next item on our agenda from November 21st was a consideration of a proposal for a conditional use permit from Rocky Mountain Power regarding the wildfire mitigation project, which would rebuild the existing 46 kilovolt transmission lines that run about 3.5 miles through the town of Hideout. The Planning Commission discussed that. There was public input, and the conditional use permit was unanimously approved. Any questions on that?
Joel, if you could take a moment, do you have a feel for the timing or the sequencing? You know, when they're gonna start planting the first pole in town, that kind of thing?
Yeah, good question. Their tentative timeline was to start around March. So end of first quarter, beginning of second quarter. They estimated it would take about 3 months. The new poles will go in within 5 feet of the existing poles. So the placement of the poles is very close to where they are now. They are steel, they'll be weathered steel. I believe they said there will be one less transmission line or fewer transmission lines because of these new poles. So some of the poles will be higher, could be as much as 20 to 25 feet higher than the existing poles. Some of the poles could be, I think it was up to 10 feet lower than existing poles.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anything new that you guys discussed that wasn't presented in the open house that Rocky Mountain Power had here? Because there was no new information, because I remember the within 5 feet was also at that open house. As far as height, I don't remember hearing the height differences.
Yeah, they had, and it should be in, I think it was in the public information packet. Each pole, they said the change in height.
Okay,
It listed each.
so they had a lot of information. There was here and you had to go to different stations and they were showing videos and stuff. But
Yeah, and I was not at that, so I don't know if they presented different information, but.
They did supply a map and they numbered each pole, and there was a corresponding chart that showed what was going to happen in terms of height with each pole. And I believe that was attached to the public information.
okay, yeah, that sounds right. I think people, a lot of people are just worried about the pole they can see from their house kind of thing,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
And then the rest of them, it's like, okay, good, thank you for getting rid of the wood, putting in metal, maybe they won't burn and so easily or caught, you know, I don't know, hopefully they'll be safer. It's a wildfire. Evidently they would be, otherwise I don't see them spending the money to do this, so. Okay, so I thought they were going to actually start sooner than next spring, is that
In our meeting, they said March.
March?
They were shooting for March, and they thought it would be a 3-month project. And what they do is they come in and they dig the holes for the poles first,
Mhm.
and then they come back and put the poles in. So you're not going to see, 3 months of activity in one specific location. It will be throughout the 3.5 mile project.
Great.
The
Did
next.
did they say when they were gonna finish, Joel? Did they give
Yeah.
a possible end date? Or
Yeah,
In
June
general,
1st.
In
June
Hideout,
1st? Oh,
yeah, they thought it would be about 3 months, a 3-month project.
okay, so March, something like second quarter. Thanks.
Yeah, end of second quarter, beginning of third quarter. Next item we discussed was an amendment of the zoning map to rezone the Wild Horse development from mountain zone to neighborhood mixed use. Just a reminder, that's on the north side of State Route 248 between the Wolf property and Claim subdivision. We didn't make any, it was discussed, there were no recommendations made. They were going back to refine their proposal based on comments from the Planning Commission. This is the second time we've asked them to go back and make some revisions. So that will be continued to another Planning Commission meeting. And let's see, we had one more item on the agenda, and it was a presentation and discussion of a concept plan for Elkhorn Springs development, AKA the Salzman property. We met with the developer came to the meeting and just discussed a concept plan. He's looking at developing now the western portion of the property, which is the land where the house sits, in addition to the eastern portion. Just a discussion, and he went back and is making some revisions on that. So we will look forward to hearing from him at a future meeting.
Will that require some revisions to the MDA that was signed 3 years ago?
We
We do
don't
not
have
have.
an NDA there.
There's no MDA associated with that.
Oh, okay,
So
never mind.
just for clarification, there was a draft MDA that was never executed. So you're right, there is no MDA right now.
Okay, thank you.
But that's part of the submission, was it, eventually, is that correct? Or that's
That
what
is-
I understood anyway?
That is correct. For rezoning, we always require an MDA. They have not yet submitted one, but that would be a part of that proposal for rezoning.
And that was basically our agenda for the last meeting. Our next meeting was scheduled for our normal Thursday, the 19th. Due to some conflicts, we have changed that, and we will be meeting this coming Monday, December 16th. Anyone would like to join us in person?
And what's on the agenda for Sunday?
Let's see. I believe the main item on the agenda is the possible amendments to Title 10 as it relates to engineering, development, and design standards. Town engineer will be there, and we will be discussing that. I don't believe any of the developers have asked to come back to that meeting.
That's correct. The only other thing that may be on that meeting for your information is maybe an initial discussion regarding potential general plan updates. Polly and myself and Gordon had talked about maybe bringing that before the Planning Commission to kind of work on that over the next maybe 4, 6, 8 months to kind of tidy it up. Given that it's now 5 years old, that's the typical timeline for doing a review. So we'll probably maybe start doing some work sessions with Planning Commission. But other than that, you're right, no other private development application is on.
Is
Okay.
that hearing the one with our engineer, or is it just a discussion between the planning commission and the engineer?
That I believe is a public hearing, yes, and a recommendation, a possible recommendation for approval. Thank you, everyone. Mayor, thank you for allowing the planning commission to speak earlier than normal. We appreciate that.
Okay, Joe. Glad you came. Thanks. Okay, EDC, Ralph?
Yeah, so one thing I already mentioned, that's the survey that we wanted to extend to people who hadn't been able to attend the Ross Creek open house last month on the 13th, I think it was, the day before our last town council. So I think we already covered that. Just in terms of meetings, we're trying to at least we've had conversations here to keep developers on track with us and to share information. And also we're looking at kind of what we had talked about and presented to one of the town councils about creating a kind of project team that would be cross-functional. It would probably include a council person, a planning commission person, kind of the group that we're already meeting with, and then using that as that chaperone for some of the developers who are having what I would call difficult time either getting all the right information in at the right time or misinterpreting it or say, so to speak, a combination of things. And I think that's one area that we can help. I think, that would include obviously whatever we would need to, kind of help chaperone some of these processes a little bit faster, and mostly so that we don't lose our developers that are, may get to a point where either they don't understand what's going on, they don't feel like they're getting enough attention, whether that's true or not. But that's a piece that we're discussing right now. So, and then the other piece that I've talked to. Any comments about that, by the way, because that is important. The other piece that Jan and I have talked about, and even Jonathan a little bit, I've done a fair amount of research on the economics and what we can do as a town and what other towns are doing with wildfires specifically, because we're kind of in the middle of this. We all know, the number of acres that have gone up already in Utah. And so what I did find out, and I know I've got some contacts with companies who do deep analysis on this. So these are private companies, but there's also, there's the wildfirerisk.utah.gov. That's a public site where you can actually understand what your particular, down to your house, where you're at risk and where you're not at risk. You can do areas. FEMA's got something, an organization known as First Street. Park City has a fairly extensive view on their website and information regarding wildfires. I just think, we're at this point where, with insurance going up, I would call it in some cases skyrocketing, getting a handle on this. We've made some connections with the Wasatch Fire Department, looking to have some meetings. Jonathan arranged that. So hopefully we'll try to see what kinds of data they get. They may have the same data, the wildfirerisk.utah.gov or FEMA, don't know, but maybe we can assemble some of this data and understand where we're at risk within our town. We can either share that or point people to the appropriate public or private websites where they can get further data that can help them improve their likelihood of getting insurance and reduce the cost of that insurance. That's going to be key for us going forward, and then getting good recommendations to create defensible distances away from homes, houses, and other buildings. I'll stop there.
You may not know this, but we turn in a document every year to the fire district describing what the town has done to mitigate or provide things that mitigate the fire risk. And so far, those documents are primarily the fact that we've paved more roads, cleared more land, stuff like that. We passed the wildland urban interface rules, those kinds of things. So, but I encourage very much the thoughts that that there's probably more we can do, more we should do. Unfortunately, we can't legislate fire suppression in homes. That's been taken away from us by the state. So, we have to do the best we can do. The good news is, we've done with the paving of the road on the way out of Longview Drive past Rustler, gives us 2 solid exits on the downhill side of town. And now we've got the emergency road maybe about passable down below Lakeview and all those. I don't know quite where the status of that is right now. So the downhill side at least has some egress issues addressed. The uphill side, we've got a secondary access out of Golden Eagle. And Soaring Hawk scares me, but we have work to do on that one.
Yeah, and I would, yeah, that's, you know, I remember when we passed that one ordinance, you know, for defensible space around homes and clearings and things like that. I would call this kind of deeper education and awareness, both at the, you know, the town level and for our residents and builders going forward, so that we can, you know, all participate in better rates and better fire control and better awareness of where are, you know, where we're susceptible to risk here and to wildfires. And I think all that would, you know, it may take us some time to build that up, just like I was looking at what Park City's doing, what the state's doing right now. So I think we're just in the very, very initial stages. Besides what we're required to give, you know, what are the things that we could educate ourselves on that can improve, again, our positions with underwriters, for instance, whether, you know, even at a town level. So,
Okay.
Hey, Ralph, you always have such awesome, great ideas. I love the idea of a Smokey the Bear campaign for Hideout. But just want to say, you know, we can't execute on all of our great ideas. We have to pick the ones that'll give us the biggest bang, right? And because we're so limited in our resources, our human resources, people, time, energy, we've got so many other things going on. And then I think the town staff gets stuff thrown at them right and left constantly. So it's a great idea. I think to execute it, we need people who, you know, want to roll up their sleeves and work and get the campaign going. So I don't know what we do with the great ideas that we can't quite get to yet. Maybe we park them somewhere so we don't lose sight of them. And then I think we're going on a retreat, right? In January, maybe we should be talking about what we want to try to do in the next year and see, you know, which of these great ideas we might actually be able to complete.
yeah, I agree with you, Chris. You know, it's always a prioritization, whether you're in business or you're doing anything, and then you have resources against that. You know, there's a lot of smart people in town. That's how we got things like our committees going, which we never had. You know, we have participants here. I would go out to the town and try to see if there's a couple of agents. I know Jonathan knows one of them. I know another one. Those could be part of that. There could be other people that have kind of an interest in this, because it really is very impactful, both financially and for builders. You know, I mean, builders have to pay builders risk, which is enormously expensive. They just pass that on through the cost of homes. So, you know, those are the things. But prioritization and getting resources. But, you know, like we do with other things, I think we solicit resources with expertise, and we got a ton of expertise in this town. So
I don't know, and I don't want to belabor this, but you know, when it comes to insuring your home and, you know, going out and seeking insurance, I mean, it's an open market, right, Ralph? It's an open market. We're all responsible to do our best, you know, to find what's on the market that we can afford, just like anything else. So I'm not really sure how we can actually really tackle this, but I love the idea of us being able to somehow help ourselves find, you know, insurance that we can keep and afford. But I just don't know. I'm not sure what we could do on the town level. That.
yeah, education. You know, maybe again, it's a volunteer committee to look at this across the town, and just like we did with the fire department, you know, becomes somewhat voluntary. People get involved. People, you know, participate with their pocketbooks as well. I'm not saying that would apply here, but I would say, you know, it's definitely awareness, education, and it has financial impact. So let's think about this. You know,
Yeah,
this
let's
is not
take this
yeah,
offline as far as
yeah.
feedback, because we're
Is we can reinforce the contents of the WUI. Tell people, hey, don't put trees next to your house. Or if you have them next to your house, think about, maybe removing them. I know it's so cool to have a Christmas tree right up against your house, especially this time of year, you can put great lights on it, but if we did have a fire that you would not, you would be out there with your chainsaw cutting that thing down as soon as you could before that fire reaches your house. So, I don't know.
Guys, I mean, we're getting into a subject that we're just trying to get an update on what Ralph's team's been working on. And we can come back to that. The chief has wanted to make a comment. I'll let him make a comment, and then we're going to put this to rest because it's 6:45 and we have to be done at 8. And we haven't even gotten to through the public hearing, public input, public hearing, and so forth. So go ahead, chief.
Mayor, I was just going to give you guys an update, Mayor and Council. We're more than happy to provide some manpower to this. And that's one of the things that Chief Nearings and the fire warden will help us with. So I just want to put that out there that it doesn't all have to be on you. We want to be your partner in this and help you through this because this benefits all of us. So we have some things for 2025 that we want to put in place, but we will want to get on another council agenda and get that to you.
Thanks, Chief. Okay. Ralph, did you have any other subjects from your team that you want?
No, but just Chief Hales, I'd love to have that meeting. Maybe we can get on a level set mindset here, so to speak, and talk about some things. So I'll do this separately with you, if that's all right. I think we have that on a future calendar anyway. Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay. Thanks, Ralph, for the update. Thanks everybody for the spirited conversation. I agree with Chris. It's a great item along with many others that we have, and we're going to have to, and I hope the January meeting will allow time for that. DRC, Thomas, anything new there?
The only thing I guess I would catch you guys up on is that we are coordinating with Lakeview to kind of close that one out with regard to some bonding for infrastructure, horizontal infrastructure, et cetera. So we'll be working with them over the next couple of weeks. If you notice anything out in that area that you feel is not done, whether it's trails or street lighting, stormwater basins, roads, anything like that, certainly don't hesitate to reach out to me if that happens to come across your path. But otherwise, that's a project we'll be closing out the bonds for. Other than that, no other updates.
Okay. Thanks, Thomas. Post, Chris.
All right, the post committee met November 19th, and I want to always thank Kathleen Hopkins for giving us excellent notes and keeping us moving. Anyway, so we had Amanda White, Jordan State Park manager, join us. We talked about fencing repairs along shoreline, Lakeview Estates and Deer Waters, the boundaries in the park. There are some things people have been doing to the fence, which has been, to compromising the fence. So Amanda had spoken to Glenn, who understands the need to make repairs, and Thomas was expected to be meeting with PT Homes. So, to discuss their various sections about making fence repairs with the state park. Also, the Bureau of Reclamation is planning to do a new survey of the park at some point in the near future. And then there's a representative at Bureau of Reclamation that the park manager has been working with. And there's been some discussion about development plans and grants and a potential Hideout Jordan State Park pass. That's not a new item, but we just never got any final traction on that, having a kind of a locals pass for Jordan State Park only. So we have not gotten traction on that. The reason that kept coming up is because Sky Ridge, they were expecting to be able to issue a locals pass that would be paid for by their HOA, but that hasn't materialized yet with the state park. And if they were going to get one, we wanted to see if we could do something similar and make the money that would go to those passes go directly to Jordan State Park and not go into the whole state park system to be, spread out amongst all of the state parks. So the actionable items really were winter trail grooming. So Kathleen and John Hopkins went out and marked the single track trails in the state park in Ross Creek with those sticks for driveway sticks, so that if it ever snows, we will know where the trail goes, because there is an intention for Hideout volunteers to do some trail grooming there. We had talked about purchasing grooming equipment, but Kathleen had gotten in touch with Wasatch Trails Foundation and their two groomers, Matt and Mitch, to talk about the equipment that they use and to talk about the actual terrain in the state park. So they came up with a great idea that we would borrow their equipment and give it a try, just to see what works before we go ahead and either before we end up purchasing some kind of a grooming equipment for those trails that we can leave nearby. So we're looking forward to the snow falling. When it does fall, I think John and others are going to volunteer to work with Matt and Mitch to see how their snow dog or whatever other trail grooming equipment they have works. So we're looking forward to that. We just have to communicate with Amanda, the park manager, whenever we're going to go out there on the trails with this machinery, so that there's no misunderstanding by the public that somebody's just out there, operating a motorized piece of equipment on the trails. We're going to make sure we've got the signage up. I think Amanda's going to handle putting up signage, so the general public, if they see it, they're out there, they can see the signs up that, hey, trail grooming, official trail grooming is in process. So, and then Carol attended, and we did have a discussion about potential parking and pickup locations for bus service. So with that, I'd like to turn over to Carol for her update on transportation.
Thank you, Chris. Carol?
Okay. I have two things to report. The first one is on the new schedule from Richardson Flat into Park City and into the two resorts. The major change is the 6 silver bus, which will only run every 40 minutes. It will follow the same route that it has previously, with one exception. It will go to Fresh Market instead of the stop by the clock tower on Bonanza Drive. It's much better, I think, for people who need to transfer, because there's all kinds of other buses that come into Fresh Market area. And they have also built a new stop there that is covered. So, and then the 2 express buses, one to Park City Mountain and one to Snow Park Lodge. The one to Park City Mountain will be running every 15 minutes. The one to Deer Valley Snow Park Lodge will be running between 15 and 30 minutes. They start super early in the morning, 5:45 a.m., and they end coming back. The 2 resort buses will end. You can pick them up at 6:15 and 6:21 in the evening, and then there won't be any others after that. However, the silver bus, you can pick it up at Old Town Transit Center as late as 11:05 p.m. So I will get all that information to Carol Custerly so she can send it out to our residents. And then the other information that I have has come from Dustin Grabow, who is the Wasatch County manager. And this was in a notice to Jan, so she can correct me on this if I don't have it right. But right now, Wasatch County has a contract with High Valley Transit. And they will only do pickups with their microtransit in a particular zone in the Heber Valley. they are going to start paratransit service in January, but that will also only be in their locations in Heber Valley. It will not extend out to us. So his comment was the Jordanelle Basin should get their own microtransit zone once they develop enough for sales tax to support it, which I think is a long way out. But he did say that Wasatch County is willing to discuss with High Valley Transit about making some stops in our town of Hideout in the fall, winter of 2025. So that's what I have to report. Are there any questions?
Well, that's progress. Maybe getting stops into the year.
Right, possibly, yeah.
Oh,
And
that's good.
that would be High Valley Transit.
Yep.
So, but again, we have to provide parking for the people who have cars that, you know, drive to the pickup place and then get on the bus. So,
In High Valley, Carol, would they would charge us, or how would they, do we have any idea how the billing would occur? Would happen?
gosh, it was at least 2 years ago that Jan and I met with Carolyn Rodriguez, and she said, yes, we would have to provide money. So she didn't say how much or what or whatever.
All right, guys, let's not get into something that's not here for another
Right.
year, so
Okay,
try and stay on track.
okay.
Can I just add a quick comment that Park City is working on traffic issues on 248. They have a traffic plan. I've reached out to see if we can collaborate and be productive in that conversation.
Aren't they doing a survey now on that, Jan?
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a public process going on right now, yeah. Yeah, I just saw something written up about that, so I think they're underway for input, Jan. I don't know. I mean, I think that's what they published anyway.
Right. I was at that meeting and I've had a conversation with Matt since.
There was a picture in the December 4th park record of 248 and the traffic jam looks like in the morning. And yeah, that said they're slated to discuss the long range of 248. Boy, it'd be nice to be really involved in that one, huh?
They put three schools
Definitely.
all together right there. I mean, it's always going to be jammed up. So I don't know. I don't know what solution. You know, with short of widening the road or putting in.
Well, the article mentions, which they have talked about
Hey,
before.
guys, let's,
gondola or
again,
tram.
I need
Yeah.
to come back to, if Jan, if you would be so kind as to share the opportunities for public input from people like us, that would be great.
Okay.
Okay, and we'll get that to all of you council members so you can see where you think there's opportunities for you to participate. It's just, we gotta get moving. We're an hour in and we have to get through some stuff, so I'm sorry. Thanks, Carol.
You're welcome.
Public input. So this is opportunity for members of the public to speak. I already see a hand up, several hands up.
And Mayor, we have one in the room with a hand up.
All right, let's start with whoever's got their hand up in the room.
Goodbye. We have one hand up for public input here in the room.
So I don't know who the hand is, but they're welcome to state their name and speak their point.
Okay, so you're recognizing him first. He'll go up to the podium.
All right, so I'll make this brief, Mayor. I just came here to get familiar with the process and people involved in the council, but I noticed on agenda item, closed session number 9, that you're talking about security personnel devices or systems possibly. And
Yes.
Jan knows some of my background qualifications, but what she doesn't know is that security used to be my thing. I designed security for Lucasfilm, George Lucas, for Industrial Light and Magic, Skywalker Ranch. I designed security for Apple Computer in the early 80s, along with Chevron Park, back when Apple was a baby. And I attend the ISC West show almost every year, which is the largest security conference show in the country. And I have close contacts with all sorts of security personnel, including outfits who've done security for cities such as Chicago, Ogden, and other places. So I just want to offer for free, again, my expertise if Jan would like any kind of consulting on any of the issues you have with security. After that last event in the park, some things have been going through my mind. So I just want to offer that. Say thank you everyone for your service and have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Bill. That's very interesting. I'm sure we'll get in touch with you about that stuff.
All right, he left the room, Mayor.
Oh, you need some?
No.
No.
Thank you. He'll get in touch with you, he said.
Okay, bye.
Someone named Kara is raising their hand. Kara, if you'd state your surname and then you're welcome to make your comment.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Town Council. My name is Kara Byrne. I live on Shoreline. I have two comments today. The first one, and I'll keep it brief. The first one is to say that our current speed mitigation isn't working on Shoreline Drive. I think we have a few people on here that are talking about it. So first, I want to say that the current speed limit signs are blinking when people go 10 over. It should be blinking when you're going any amount over the speed limit. Two, there's a group of my neighbors that are on an email thread, and I want to express support and also express that at least 6 or 7 of my neighbors in the nearby area, I live at 11865 North Shoreline, are in favor of putting in speed humps. So I wanted to express our support for that, and also make it clear that there's a number of other neighbors that would be in support of that as well. And I know Josh is on here, he'll talk about that too. The second thing that I just wanted to bring up, and this is kind of a low priority given it's winter, but we have a small child, we use the playground a lot. So keeping it on our radar to fill in the playground with additional mulch. Right now it's a pretty hard bottom and it's kind of dangerous for the little ones walking around there. So, but my first priority really is the speed mitigation on Shoreline. So thanks.
Thanks. So just on your comment on the playground, that's an HOA item, not a town item.
Got it.
Okay, thanks. Let's see. Brett, your hand is up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
All right. Again, thanks for all the hard work everybody's been doing. I know there's a lot. I would like to ask the town to really try to do something about the construction parking at Lot 3 in Glistening, 1105 East Longview. It continues to be a lot of near misses, including myself while I'm crossing the street in that area to get over the sidewalk. That is a super dangerous corner. The other day, there were 2 concrete trucks backed up. They do have ability to park on the lot. I know parking plans, I believe, are part of the required drawings. And there's a little bit of confusion, at least on my part, because the signage in the town says no parking during these winter months. But the ordinance talks about only during and 24 hours after snowfall. There was also Dan Allen had worked with him one time, and he had asked me to contact the builders directly if I could to try to help because of the short staff of the town. And I did that related to 1160 East Lasso Trail. I believe the guy's name was Scott from Gravity Construction, was incredibly rude. He asked if I was from the HOA, and when I said no, he hung up on me. Then I explained to him that I was instructed by the town to first try to contact builders. They had 7, 8 cars on the street while it was snowing, and the plows were going through there. And then we've got Lot 23 in Glistening Ridge, 1230 East Longview, that they leave stuff on the street overnight on occasion, equipment, trailers. It's super dark. I see cars, not see it to the last minute and swerve to not hit it. Again, pretty confusing on what the parking ordinances are during the winter months, and also another ordinance that I brought to Thomas and Joel Pipers about no parking on any part of Longview, although the description of Longview is a little bit outdated. So I just really ask for the help in, especially that corner at Lasso and Longview Trail by the hill is super dangerous one. It's a very blind corner. and
Yep.
it's just dangerous there.
Thanks, Brett.
Thank you.
Very, very good comment. Dan, you're on tonight, so I'm asking you to please step it up. We can't be passing that to the community to resolve. That's our job. We need to get our guys out and get them written up. It's the only way these guys listen. All right. I want fines issued. So please take that on.
Mayor, this is Chris. I do know exactly what Brett's talking about. It's difficult from day to day because it fluctuates. It's not always a whole bunch of cars in front of a construction site. Sometimes it's one guy. And it's really difficult to police unless we hire someone to do that. I know you want Public Works to work on it, Mayor, but is that the priority as opposed to other Public Works items that they might be doing during the day, like sewer stuff or?
Well, public safety is the priority at all times. Okay, it's number one priority.
Should we have a public safety officer then, if that's really true?
Well,
I mean,
it's a decision for council to consider. So I guess I hear you, Chris. So let me ask staff to work on whether or not we want to find somebody that we're going to hire, or at least on a part-time basis, potentially to roam the sites, the construction sites, and keep up with that. Because I mean, the guys, when they're plowing or getting ready for a snowstorm, they're not going to be doing any kind of check. I understand what your point.
It's the worst, right? I mean,
Yeah.
when we've got the going on, and yet we still have the,
This is
safety plowing. Okay, go ahead.
I'll get to you in a minute, Dan. Okay.
So I just think, it is a problem. But it fluctuates from day to day. It's,
Yeah.
You just don't know. Depends on what's going on that site, how many cars are out there, or if the cement trucks are out there and the pumpers, or, you got 12 cars. At least, I'll tell you this, at least they're all parking on the same side of the road. So we made progress there, where we don't have people on both sides of the road parked generally. But it's a problem. It's an ongoing problem. There's no easy solution unless we want to pony up and get a, enforcement officer out there who that's their job.
Okay.
And the other thing is, I just want to say, it's always hard to balance this. I mean, my belief is that, we want the town to build up as quickly as possible. Prolonging the construction of any particular site and slowing them down is not necessarily helping us long term. It just makes us be a construction town longer. So, there's definitely a balance between, enforcing good common sense public safety laws and making it possible for people to develop as quickly as possible, any permitted property. So I wish there was an easy solution, Brett, but I know exactly what you mean. There are some days it's just so bad getting around that, but other days there's nobody there. So that's my thought.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, there's somebody named Josh Byron. Do you want to speak? Go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate the forum. I'll go on camera with you guys. I don't want you to be speaking all to a bunch of black squares. Let me see if it'll let me do video. Maybe not. Maybe it's blocked. Hey, hi. Thank you guys for the forum. Thank you guys for the time. I am Kara's neighbor. I do not have children, but I see Kara's children out, or her child out there with her. I have my next door neighbor who has a 4-year-old. They play in the driveways, live on Shoreline Drive, and the escalation of speeds along the street. I sit up here and watch out my window all day. I work from home. I overlook Shoreline Drive. The escalation of speeds in just the last few months has been terrifying. I'm scared for these kids to be out there. I'm scared myself to walk in the street, which we don't have a sidewalk. So if we want to walk to the mailboxes, we only have the choice of the street, right? So to Kara's point, between the speed signs that went in, and I appreciate all the attempts that have been made to try and mitigate the excessive speeds that we're seeing through here. The speed signs that went in, they changed from orange to red, which Probably 30% of the population can't even see that. It doesn't say what the speed limit is. And it doesn't blink until you're going 50% faster than you're supposed to be, which is over 30 miles an hour, right? To Kara's point. And then the double yellow lines, I think the intent was to narrow the driving lanes, but subconsciously, what we've witnessed is that it tells drivers that they're on a highway and that they can drive faster. They're protected, right? Their lane is actually protected now. They have a double yellow line in the middle. And that's what we've seen. And that's seriously, in the last few months since those went in, speeds have doubled. I saw a car drive past me while I'm standing in my driveway last night at 60 miles an hour. It was an Uber. I went out tonight to pull my trash can in, and I was standing on the ice pulling my trash can in. A car sped past me. Luckily, he stopped and apologized. Like, oh my God, yeah, I didn't see you. I should have slowed down. Yeah, you should have. So speed cushions is what I've been familiar with being most effective at slowing people down. A series of speed cushions is usually very effective. You see it in the neighborhoods of like Santa Monica, Long Beach. You see it in the side streets along 700 South or 700 East in Salt Lake to prevent people from cutting through and speeding along side streets. They're very, very effective. You can put it in front of my house. I'm okay with the noise. I'm not okay with somebody getting hurt. And that's what's happening. If you want to put patrols out here, the best time is at 4 o'clock and at 8 o'clock. 4 o'clock is the builder jailbreak, where everybody they're screaming down the road to get out of there, right? I'm happy with them working fast on the site, but I don't want them racing down. And they're all buddies, right? A lot of them are buddies, and it's big trucks, it's little trucks, it's everything. They're all driving well over 40 miles an hour down the street. And there are little children here, right? So I'm very worried about that. I'm worried for my own safety. I'm half deaf. So if I walk down the street, I have to basically look over my shoulder the whole time I walk down the street to go to the mailbox, because I'm not going to hear them coming, and they're going to run me over. And some of it's big dump trucks, some of it's little cars, but it's everybody. They're all speeding. And I don't blame them, because they're not really aware that they're in a neighborhood. The double yellow line subconsciously tells them they're safe. They can drive fast. So I think there's a lot of things we can do. The one thing we all agree on in my stretch of neighbors all along here, right at the gateway in Shoreline Drive here, is speed cushions would really, really help. So thank you for the time.
Okay. And you said 4 and 8, you mean 8 a.m., not 8 p.m., I assume.
4 p.m. and 8 p.m. at late at night.
Oh,
We
8
have
p.m.
people,
Oh.
8 p.m., 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. I think would be the best times to station a patrol unit out here. If you're going to have somebody watching, because that's the worst time. Between 4 and 5:30, when all the builders are cutting loose, it's contractors, it's builders, it's not just construction workers, it's service trucks, it's plumbers, it's everybody.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
It's F-350s, it's Honda Civics, it's
Okay.
everything. I see them all right from my window. So I'm just telling you, it's everybody around that time is flying through here to get the hell out. Right? They want to go home. I get it.
I got your message. I just wanted to confirm the time slots.
Yeah, sorry. And the other one is 8 p.m. is when all the Ubers, the lifts, people coming home from wherever, and they're flying through here too. There's some people in our neighborhood that do it too. But I think whether or not we can enforce it with patrolling, with signage and all that, definitely obstructions will slow them down.
Got it. Thank you for your input, sir.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Dan, you wanted to comment?
With the concerns about having Brett call, a lot of times people will call and it's after the fact. So the situation's been remedied. So that's why I asked Brett, if you can call and then you let me know and I can call, I'm not passing the buck. I'm not passing it on to residents, but if they can call and they can work with the builder and then call me and I can follow up with them, that's the only reason I asked Brett to do that kind of stuff, is because if you're there and you know it's happening, it's a quicker response if you call them or you can talk to them. And some of them are jerks. They're jerks with me. And that, I'm not saying that you need to do it. And I'm happy to call anybody and talk to any builder. We have one guy that comes in and works at like 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock to write tickets as much as he can, to talk to builders, to work with that, but he's not here all day. So that's my issue, is that I'm not trying to pass the buck to Brett or anybody. It's just that if they can call and then they call me right after or before, there's 2 phone calls to that builder, and then it's a constant. They're either going to push back or they're going to stop. And that's the only reason I ever into any help from any resident or anybody, because the more these builders hear it, the more they're going to start listening, or I start writing tickets. And so that's the only reason. I don't pass the buck. I just want the more voices being heard, the more they being told, the more they listen. And
Yeah.
that's the only reason.
So I think what I'd like to do here, okay, because we've been keep working on this and we're still not accomplishing what we want to accomplish. This is not the time of year to put in speed bumps or anything like that. It's, you know, the ground's frozen. And they're also incredibly difficult to plow with. So we got to come up with some thoughts. But I like,
And then
Jan-
Mayor, just get
and-
as many people against those in the summer because of their, you know, summer cars, low clearance vehicles.
yeah, I'm not suggesting we do that, Chris.
Against it, for it, so.
Yeah, I wonder if, you know, this has been an ongoing problem for a long time. I live in this neighborhood and I can echo some of these comments. I wonder if it isn't time to step up our speed enforcement issues, perhaps with a stop sign at Overlook and Shoreline going north, and then another stop sign going south at the other end of Overlook and Shoreline. Something, because you know, public safety is, as the mayor said, this is pretty important stuff, and I'd like to see us step up. Whatever efforts we're going to do, I'm not an engineer and I don't know what the next step is, but I think we need to try something more.
So I agree, Jonathan. We've talked about stop signs. We've been told by the experts that they're more dangerous because people speed up between the stop signs even faster before they jam on the brakes again. You know, we've done traffic calming studies twice on that road. Some of what was supposed to get done this summer with the road paving didn't get done, unfortunately. It was missed in the paving proposals. And so we're going to have to go back and get that done next season. But I think what I want to do is do a few things. One, I think we can talk to the police department and ask them to spend time there, especially on the time slots that were mentioned. Two, I'm going to ask Dan to figure out, you know, somebody mentioned that the speed signs are there without a speed limit. I'm surprised to hear that because I think Dan's guys are generally pretty good about getting that stuff up. So we'll get that up. And I think we need to do some communication with, I think not specific to the speeding, but specific to the construction guys. Then we need to do a communication with the community. Says, if you see something, take a photo, all right, and send it to us, because then we can take the photo to the guy, even if it's all cleared up by the time we get there, and say, this is it's time stamped, it's all there, it's date stamped. On this date, you guys are way out of line. Here's your fine. Okay, we have photographic evidence.
I
So-
have to have that photograph for my guy to write the ticket.
I understand. That's why I'm saying.
I'm just echoing it again to you. I'm backing you up on this. I need those pictures from every resident. You see something, take a picture, email it, text it to me. I can then ticket them. That is imperative.
So I think we need to do a communication on that to explains that since we can't get to places as quickly as when you see it, just take a picture. It's public space. Take a picture, make sure it's clear enough on what site you're on. Okay, we can geolocate with that picture as well, so that we can go to those guys and say, this is unacceptable. And
So
here's your fine.
I've sent you a few recordings, Mayor Rubin, from my driveway cam when it detects how fast it doesn't have a speed, you know, the actual speed they're going, but my driveway cam gets set off all the time, but especially by the big trucks going by super fast. And I'm sorry to jump in. I just wanted to close the loop here. I will send those to you happily. It lets me know every time it detects something going by super fast because it says, oh my gosh, something might hit us, right? So I can happily send you those recordings every time. I have recordings all day, every day that happen like that, as long as my battery's still working downstairs. The other thing I'll mention, I know Carol, you were talking about low clearance vehicles. These people, some of them don't have any regard for us, period. These neighborhoods, period. I literally walked out into the street yesterday doing like this, okay, hey, let's slow down, and they were just flipping me off and
I
driving faster
understand.
and driving faster. So, like, I get people have low clearance cars and all that, but at some point, what's the value of life, right? What's the value of
I
our
got you.
safety?
I
So
got
I
you.
just want to make sure that's
You've
really
made your
clear.
point clear.
Okay, thank
Made
you.
your point clear. You're welcome to send your photos. That'd be great, especially if we can actually see a license plate number. That helps us. So we're not going to talk anymore about this. The message is clear. We're going to keep working on it. The town is committed to getting better at this. So we'll keep working on it. All right. I got to close it for this particular topic. We've covered it well enough. So if people have questions or public input for things other than the speed control and traffic stuff, you're welcome to raise your hand. Point's been made.
I just want to ask a question of Dan. Does pictures also apply to the contractors that Mr. Rutter was also talking about? Because I certainly reflect on exactly the areas he mentioned. Are you soliciting pictures for that kind of thing as well? Just want to double
Yeah.
check with you, Dan.
Anything, honestly, Ralph, it doesn't matter to me if it's trash, if it's this, if it's that. The picture then allows me, because as much as I want to say we see everything or we pay attention to everything, my guys don't always see it. They're not paying attention. They're busy thinking about something else. They miss it. We're not perfect. If a resident sees something, they're parked on the side of the road, they shouldn't be. They're double parked. Anything like that, send pictures, email them to me, text them to me. That way I can address those with those builders and or stop while it's happening. We can't be everywhere all the time. That's why I ask residents like Brett. He's there, he sees it. He has a relationship with these guys. Sometimes it's not good because the guy's a jerk, but it's still, they know that this is what's going to happen. If I get the pictures, it just makes everything so much easier for us to enforce it or send them a picture and say, look, this is happening. It's got to stop.
Could we ask the developers on these lots wherever to put up a sign saying, hey, the GC's number is this. You see a problem, call the GC as well. So it gets a little bit off of your plate.
They're all supposed to have a sign with that, Ralph.
Well, they not the ones I'm looking at. So maybe that's an enforcement issue. So they are supposed to have signs.
Every build site is
identifying-
supposed to have a contact number. Every build site is supposed to have a contact number.
Well, if it is, it's probably buried under something. So, okay, that's great. That's a good thing to know.
Okay. Thanks. All right. I don't see any other hands up for other topics. So I'm going to close public input and move to item 7, a public hearing. This is discussion and possible approval of an ordinance regarding updates related to subdivision procedures pursuant to Senate Bill 174, 2023, House Bill 476, 2024, including technical corrections and amendments to Hideout municipal codes 310 and 11. And I heard 12 and 13 mentioned earlier by Joel, so somebody needs to address that too when they talk about this topic. And I don't know who's, I guess Jay's covering that, so to start with. So.
Yeah,
I'll make it a little bigger, guys. I'm sorry. Give me a second.
To address that first point really quickly, when we originally noticed the public hearing, there were other potential changes that sections that might have been affected depending on how things went with the drafting and the public hearing. Ultimately, the ones before you are the only ones that ended up having changes. So we noticed more broadly and then narrowed in on what actually needed to change to comply. As was mentioned a little bit earlier, we have done this in the narrowest way possible within the scope of the state mandate. So we tried to reflect that in the code. You have the staff report there. This is not much different than what we talked about at the November meeting, which was a which was 1 week prior to the second public meeting at the Planning Commission. So we then incorporated feedback and some changes with staff, including Thomas and Gordon Miner, engineer, and Polly, to bring the final version to the Planning Commission, which was what was recommended with a positive recommendation, as was mentioned earlier, 3-2 to the council. So we have spent a lot of time on this at Planning Commission and Council already. This is the third meeting that I've been here to discuss. The first one was just very high level, and then last time was a little bit more in depth, and then this is where we're at. So I'm happy to address specific line by line items, or just go through what we have in it. However you want to do it. We have the adoption ordinance in front of you and the clean exhibit, which outlines section by section what the changes are. So, that attachment A is the version for where it says, section 3.02050 is the first one, is repealed and replaced, to read in its entirety. And then the red line version has the actual text changes that we've written in, so that you can compare them to what's been added, removed, or amended entirely. One thing I did want to specify is that the way that we've constructed this is to encourage applicants to come in with a concept plan that we can't require under the state law, but we encourage it through making it easy to do, and imposing some rules. That it's balancing the question of making that pre-application meeting useful to the town, but not so burdensome to the applicant that they don't use it, because then we lose all benefit to the town of having that pre-application meeting. And then preliminary application includes all of the plans. So the final is very administrative. What we've differentiated between preliminary and final is really getting the document's signature ready. That's what's happening at final. Everything else is happening at preliminary. So the drawings, the specifications, making sure that their utilities are up to snuff with everything, that's all happening at preliminary. We require one public hearing. We can only have one public hearing, which we've written into that to specify how that looks. We can't continue or have a second public hearing in that process, but it will every time go to the Planning Commission for that. And then if there are any changes from that preliminary approval at the Planning Commission during final, if it's anything substantial, one, it can't be to the subdivision improvement plans, because those that can only be considered during preliminary. And two, if it's anything substantial that would change really anything in the application, it has to go back to preliminary for basically a new application. So I'm happy to go through more questions. I'd like some direction from the council on what would be most helpful for you.
So, yeah, thanks, Jay. Just for council, these guys have worked really hard on this. I don't think we're going to try and rewrite it tonight. I mean, I think we just need to understand it. So if there's questions associated with understanding, I'm fine with that, but let's not go back to rewriting it. There are implications in this, which we were talking about earlier, and this is why we wanted to have somebody from council being connected with this. I think the other thought is I guess, Thomas, in your role, making sure that, like, if there's stuff in these proposals that need to be looked at by fire. We're getting that done in time to have that input in that one shot that we have.
We are doing that, and that's actually incorporated into the code,
Okay.
but yes.
All right. Yeah. Anyway, so I don't want to redo all this. I just want to see if you guys need more help on understanding. We've talked about it a fair bit. We're required to pass something. We have to pass something by law. And we have to do it this month. So we're kind of forced to, do this. And I don't know if we can, I don't know what the rules are on amending this if we decided that we needed to do something different in 6 months. I don't know if that's allowed or what.
Yes,
Okay.
so I'll speak to that for a second if that would be helpful. I do want to emphasize that the power of the council, and I think Thomas alluded to this earlier, your what did you say? Finger on the scale. You still have all of that power at the council level for setting the policies. Your decision making is at that level, including this. What I can't do is predict what changes you might make in 6 months and tell you whether they're going to comply with the code. What I can tell you is the draft in front of you does comply. And if you're tweaking things here and there, you need to change things. You can always update any section of your code. That is your prerogative as the legislative body. And nothing that we've done here changes the requirements that an application that an applicant has to meet in terms of the substantive what they have to do to be able to build. It doesn't change zoning, it doesn't change setbacks, it doesn't change all of those things. If there are, any of those types of decisions that you want to reevaluate at any time, this does not preclude that at all. If you want to, if the process itself isn't working as smoothly as we anticipate, and you're getting feedback from Thomas or other staff that we want to change things a little bit to do something differently, then you can do that. And if it's within the scope of the law, and there are other ways to handle this than how we've done it. We've taken the direction that we've received as best as possible to preserve the authorities that you have. One of the biggest ones being front loading this to where all those engineering drawings are at the preliminary. So the planning commission sees that and they all get worked out before the planning commission approves it, rather than the planning commission seeing, a general plan saying we want this many units in this area. And then they go to staff and then work out the drainage ditch and where their utilities are going to go and all that kind of stuff. So there is still a lot of discretion. And I think that, to the extent the council stays involved, that'll be a lot easier for you to make those policy decisions that affect all subdivisions going forward and all development, whether it's a subdivision under this or not. One other thing I did want to point out is the subdivision requirements here. We've limited it to only those things that have to be in this process, except where it makes sense to not have a different process. So for instance, subdivisions for mixed use or multifamily don't have to fall under this process. That's why we've required that those still have the pre-application meeting. We just can't require that for subdivisions that are only for single family, two family, and townhomes. So we've done as much as we can to try to keep some subdivisions will still come to you. It just won't be all of them, because we wanted to keep that as much as possible. So also, this doesn't affect anything that's governed by that needs legislative discretion, like a development agreement. That's still at your level.
Thanks for reiterating that, Jay. And thanks for all the work you've done on this. So council, if you've got questions on understanding. Now is your chance. Then I also have to open it up for public input. So
I guess I have two questions. What happens in the scenario where an incomplete application has submitted? Do we have the authority to say, we're not going to consider it, it's not complete, come back and let us know? And that if we do that, or the planning commission does that rather, that doesn't start any clocks, it doesn't sacrifice any hearing rights or anything like that?
Correct. And that's outlined in section 1106.24, where it identifies the completeness review as a separate item. So there is a determination of whether the application is complete and the initial review for that preliminary plan application. So we have a provision in here that says if an application is incomplete, then the application automatically terminates 60 days after written notice if they haven't submitted everything to make it a complete application. So there is that. We didn't want to impose stumbling blocks on the town where we had to say, the state law requires that we provide input on a complete application within 30 business days. So that is set. We didn't want to do is that if there isn't a complete application, no timer has started. That is how it is in state law. And then we addressed what we do with an incomplete application, so that's covered.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. My second question is, does this somehow either codify or reiterate or incorporate requirements to bring water?
So those are in the pre-existing, those are the standards at every subdivision. So this didn't modify those pre-existing requirements. This is strictly procedural. They do have to provide it. The one thing that we pushed that was related to services for an application in this process is with the fire district review. We required that be from them rather than from the town. So there was some discussion about how the way that it was phrased in the earlier draft, it may have committed the town to obtaining approval, where really, in fact, it needs to be on the applicant because we have timers and they don't. We'll work with them to get what they need, but we don't want to be held up by a third party we can't control to meet our deadlines.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Jay, this is Ralph. Thanks for all the work you did on this because it's a lot. So I had a few questions, but I think I'm just going to, given time, and I know we need to get this through, so to speak, but I want to just address the kind of conversation we're having earlier, where in particular on page 62 in section F, town administrator shall confer with engineer planner. We talked about this a little bit before. How do you make sure that happens? And is there I thought I read there was a 40-day bogey on that, so to speak. But give me your view, at a high level of how you encourage that to be speedy. Thomas, you're right in the middle of this as well. So how do you get everybody to confer properly and iterate through that process before final approval takes place?
You're looking at page 62 of your packet. Does it have
Correct.
a page number for the code?
Yeah, it's 110628 final plat procedures. Or it might be 29. No, it's 28, it looks like.
Okay.
Is this the section, Ralph?
Yeah, go down a little bit from there. So exactly, stop right there. You got it. So beginning with now where the words are not crossed out in red. How are towns, or how are we getting this to happen, so to speak, so it's timely and it accomplishes what we want to accomplish with the developer and for our town? And we kind of talked about this a little bit before.
Yeah, this is probably a better question for staff because what my goal in this drafting is to ensure that, you know, that you don't have too much on one person and you don't have, we want to make sure that all of the interested parties are involved before the town replies and submits something. So we built in this specification, these rules that the planner before responding or the town administrator has to confer with these people before. But I mean how you do that internally shouldn't be part of the code, in my opinion. And so that's among staff to work out. The biggest thing in terms of making sure that that's happening is whoever is receiving anything needs to be distributing that quickly. The biggest risk is, sitting on somebody's desk. So we've talked with Thomas and Polly and others about just, encouraging some internal procedures on how to make sure that if there is, the easy example is the person receiving the application is out of town on vacation for 2 weeks. How do we make sure that we are not at risk of missing a deadline because one person isn't in the office? So we have talked about that, but I think Thomas might have more input directly.
Just guys, we have a process today for work permits, right? All these kinds of things that come through staff. I mean, these things happen as part of our process. Okay, there are signatures that have to go on the plat drawings, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't see this as any different than what we do today. The timing's different, but the work that's being done is what we've already got in place with the team. So Thomas, if you want to add to that, by all means, jump in.
Mayor, you're exactly right. So the work is the same. What we'll probably do is we will coordinate a meeting either once every 2 weeks or once every month, just so we're never more than 30 days out, to always make this 30 days, and where we will come together and make sure that any application, any subdivision application that is before us, we are all meeting on it to confirm where it is in the process so that we won't miss a 30 or a 40 or a 20-day timeline, depending where it is in the process. So where we haven't had to be that definitive, we will now. So we'll just be very attentive to schedule the meetings.
And they are business day timelines. So, those are, in talking with staff, meeting the deadlines is not a concern. We're generally working well within the maximum timeframes that we've put into the code so that we don't have to worry about it as much. Some communities have opted to have in their code shorter timeframes because that's their normal process. But we've opted to allow for the maximum and aim to be much shorter.
And is this sentence taken from state code or representative of the SB 174, or is this just the way we're doing
it? In that section?
Yep.
No, that was just a clarification in the parties involved that we've drafted.
That's right.
So unique to Hideout, or is it kind of standard language?
Yeah, the town administrator isn't a role that all communities have, but generally having the planning department engineer, and then issuing up to, it's not uncommon, this structure. Just verifying the actual parties is what we made sure was customized to this, to Hideout.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions from council?
I have a question. And it's more philosophical. And my question is, why is this new legislation only for towns under 5,000 residents and not larger towns?
It isn't. It's every town, every municipality, city, and county in Utah. The exceptions for small towns is you get more time. That's the only difference. Is a small town that gets more time to respond in these timelines, but every community got the same procedural requirements they had to implement. Larger communities had to adopt their first version by February 1st of this year, not December 31st.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I'll open the floor for public input on this new code. And if there's any questions on that. Okay.
Mayor, really quick, do you just want to run through the procedures for if anybody wants to?
Oh, I'm sorry. You just used the raise your hand functionality in Zoom. I don't see any phone calls connected to that or in the room. Make your presence known to Alicia and she'll let me know that there's someone in the room that has a comment.
I would urge that for the first couple of cycles, that we make sure we do, hyper scrutiny to make sure we don't miss something, miss a deadline, or find ourselves in a position where something gets approved, that shouldn't be. And so I'm kind of wondering if we could formulate some kind of plan to make sure for the first couple of cycles, everybody is watching everything.
We are doing that. We're creating a very detailed checklist.
Terrific. And who's responsible for keeping the checklist?
We haven't yet decided. We're going to get together as a group, but I will probably initiate the checklist. Maybe I will keep it, but we'll get together as a group to confirm that.
Terrific. Thank you.
And Thomas or Jay, maybe this, sorry to bring this back to that sentence. You have confer with town engineer, town planner, fire district rep, or post committee. Is that a fire district rep or post committee, or is that or applying to everything? I'm just kind of picking apart that sentence, but it's so important that there's conference with those key people. Wouldn't want to be hung by a developer on that basis. What's the answer on that one?
Good question. Is it fire department or post committee gets to make a decision, or is it all those listed items?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a clarification, Jay, I guess, for you.
Jay, that says, yeah, it does say or now. I'm looking at that. I think that probably should say and.
Yep, that's what I think too.
And I wonder if we should have town administrator and or designee just in case there needs to be clarification or somebody's out of town, et cetera. That may be something else. Did we lose Jay?
I would think that the mayor could potentially be a designee. Just a guess.
No, that is a no. That is strictly prohibited under the state law, but another designee, because this is issuing the final determination of approval. So that's why the council or a mayor cannot be involved in that. But yes, we can say or town administrator or designee, or and then change the or to an and that can be easily incorporated into a motion.
Okay.
Okay.
Is a designee a staff member or designee? Is it designee? What's the criteria for the designee?
That would be among those internal staff considerations that we've been talking about, and I think that would suffice. So if we have a mechanism at the staff level for accounting for those things that are already being taken care of, we would just have a paper trail that's designating that, and that should cover it.
I mean, I'm just wondering, is it a staff designee? And it's not clearly not anyone elected. I get that.
Or a planning commission member. It can't be either of those.
Oh, a planning commission
Side of
member
that,
couldn't be a designee. So it has to be a staff member.
Yeah.
Right, that's what we have.
That's
We have
right.
Elected, appointed, and staff.
So just for clarification, you're going to change this to, after the word representative, put a comma and change or to and? Is that correct?
yes.
Okay, thanks, Jay.
Okay,
I would only change that in the clean version that is going as Exhibit A with the adoption resolution, the adoption ordinance. So the whereas
Right.
portion, the red line will just be part of the file going forward, but the adopted ordinance will be the clean version. And that will be input into your muni code or municipal code online, whichever you
right.
use.
Community code is what we use, yeah. Okay, this was public input, and I guess you all were responding as members of the public, because council had already discussed all these things. So I don't see any hands from the public, so I'm going to close public input associated with the public hearing on the new code. And at this point, I think if we've answered all the questions, I'm looking for a motion to adopt an ordinance amending Hideout Municipal Code Titles 11 and 12 regarding subdivision procedures, with the changes just spoken by Councilman Severini around the language and the planning director Thomas around the language on town administrator and adding or designate and changing the language of or to an and in regards to all of the people who have to check off.
Well, also move based upon those edits to that section.
I'll second it.
Okay. Chris,
Yes,
you approve?
yes,
Carol?
Yes.
Thank you. Jonathan?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Okay. The ordinance is passed unanimously by the council members present. We are going to move on to the next topic.
Thanks, Jay.
Thanks, Jay, for all your work. And
Thank you.
You can listen if you like, but you don't need to stay. It's not the Hotel California. All right. So I have to make a sort of a change to the agenda a little bit because I have a personal issue. And I want to get this done because I think the chief is still on, I think. I don't know. Let me see. Yeah, he's I have things I have to do for personal medical reasons that are gonna necessitate my not being able to finish all these discussions, unfortunately. Because I can't stay past 8:30 and we need to have a closed session. So I'm trying to figure out how best to do this. Maybe we can do one of these before 8 o'clock. And then jump
Maybe.
into closed session.
May I suggest we just get to 3 right away because we have to do that, establishing the regular meeting schedule. We just get that out of the way quickly.
Yeah, we can do that one. That's easy. And then we can go, well, I have to go to closed session and then come back, and after close, I can't, by 8:30, I have to be gone. So, Chris, I'll have to ask that you can finish it up wherever we are.
Let's just try to finish it if we can.
Sorry?
I think we should just try to finish it. Like, we have 5 minutes to get through one thing that's really easy and two things that might be very quick.
Okay, we try. So this is an ordinance, the regular scheduled meetings for us for 2025, which we have to do every year. We are not changing anything here. It's still the second Thursday of every month. Subject to our choosing to make an adjustment, but this would be the published dates. So this is pretty straightforward, nothing new, same time, same bat time, same bat channel, as they say. People my age anyway.
I have no problem with many changes. Any of the council members, we're okay with the schedule. It's been working well for a long time.
Yeah, I move that we adopt it and go forward and vote.
I
Okay,
second.
okay. Second, Carol, thank you. Ralph,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
and Jonathan.
Yes.
Okay, that one's done. Thank you. The next one, fire station. We've been talking about this. Cameron, Jonathan, others have been working on this for quite some time. Thomas, I've been working on this quite some time. There's, I think at this point, I think, I don't know, Thomas, can you summarize the parts that are missing that we're gonna conditionally adopt this, recognizing certain things? I don't know if there's a written report on this, or Cameron, maybe you can cover it. I can't remember who.
Yeah, so the only thing we're missing is a detailed drawing or listing of where the project will take place. We do have an attachment that we believe will satisfy that. But essentially, this is the lease for the fire station. We've worked out the language with the fire district, and we just have to make a few minor adjustments. We're conceptually just looking for the council's authorization for the mayor to sign this lease with some potential modifications as approved by the mayor and the city attorney, but nothing substantively different. So the final language is the version that is before you, and then we need to add a visual and written description of where the project will be on the parcel. That's all that's missing.
Cameron, the question I have, is it the entire parcel that's being leased, or is it a portion of it for the station and the drive and such?
It's just a portion for the station. It'll be anywhere from 0.95 to 1 acre on the left-hand side of the parcel from the driveway.
Okay, and that'll be in the description in the final.
Yes. Yes.
Great,
That's
thank
right.
you.
I think we'll want to include that's a good point, Chris. And then note that the portion that still remains with us, potentially for public works, et cetera, make sure that we can identify access to conform with UDOT requirements for potentially 2 uses on that property.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Okay, I hear you, Thomas. I'm not sure if that. The lease isn't, are we making the lease, you're saying the lease is contingent on the fact that UDOT has to approve that?
No, the lease
I don't think we're
recognizes. Sorry, Thomas, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
So the lease recognizes that there may be a co-location of facilities there.
I thought, yeah.
If we co-locate, we're going to have to keep the driveway in compliance with UDOT regulations, but there's no requirement within the lease necessarily until, the lease is silent on that. So that provision is not covered in the lease. It's not a requirement to have that in the lease.
Okay.
All right, and the terms of the lease are 0 for a set period of time. That's renewable, right?
Yes.
Fine with that. The remedies, if there's a breach, those were interesting. Can we just really quickly?
Yeah, so what we're trying to do that both sides are very interested in having this relationship go forward. We're just trying to protect the fire district and the town in case something unforeseen happens. So essentially, the either party can terminate with certain notice depending on the reason. If there's a termination if we terminate the lease before the useful life of the building, there's going to be a depreciation of the building, and then we would have to fund the remaining value. There's damage to the property, same kind of thing. There's a depreciated value less the damage, etc. If the fire district fails to staff the facility and provide fire services like we've asked, there's a termination for that. And so we're just trying to cover both sides. Neither one of us are intending that anything would end. We're intending for this to be, continue on as long as we can. Legally, we can't make it forever, so it's as long as we can make it.
We essentially want to give incentive for both sides to keep this relationship going for as long as possible.
Sounds good.
Well, I would move that we authorize the mayor to go forward, subject to the.
I have, Jonathan, I have one question.
I'm sorry, Ralph.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, in section 16, we're covered, we asked the tenant, fire station, Wasatch Fire Department, to cover their property insurance, but what happens if somebody gets hurt? That's liability. Are we held harmless, or should they be carrying? Typically, when you carry property, you're carrying general liability as well. So either you're held harmless on our part. I don't see anything in that section holding us harmless or insuring us for, somebody gets hurt on the property, who pays?
Yeah, so the short answer is the fire district would be responsible for any thing that occurs on their portion of the parcel. If there was something that occurred on the remaining portion that the town owes, we would be responsible for that.
Yeah, it's not very clear in this section then, in my opinion. And, commercial property insurance doesn't necessarily have to include liability. So I'd want to see us either held harmless or covered by liability.
Okay, we can make the approval with the authorization for the mayor to include language to that effect. I don't see a scenario where we would be responsible for the portion that the fire district is leasing. They are effectively the owner of that property, and so I don't know how they would indemnify us for something that doesn't occur on our property that's under our control. Legally, we're not responsible for it.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be in, you guys, you're a lawyer, but I wouldn't want to be in a case on that, because they'll name everyone, that's involved typically. So I just want to make sure we're covered. So I would extend that to property and liability.
Okay.
I think, Cameron, there's going to be some, potentially in the future, there's going to be a boundary line of sorts. And so it probably makes sense to have a bit of additional clarity there. So,
well, I'm just thinking, hey, my grandson's going to probably go over there. I may bring him. We were talking about having a bunch of kids, get to know the firehouse. So you never know. I mean, God forbid. But,
yeah,
we
very good point, Ralph. Yeah. Okay. I think we can clarify that in section 16.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ralph. All right, so Jonathan, if you want to make a motion, including improved language on section 16 regarding liability for the town of Hideout, then we can potentially move this forward.
All right, well then I guess I would move that we give the mayor the authority to enter into this lease, subject to the mayor and council's, and of course the fire department's agreement on adding some kind of protection that's appropriate for personal injury on the town that might be brought against the town. Of course, we have to attach the exhibit as well. And so with that, I would move that we give the mayor the authority to move forward with those changes.
Thank you, Jonathan. Somebody want to second that?
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
Thank you, Carol. All right, Ralph, how do you vote?
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Jonathan,
Yes.
and Carol?
Yes.
Thank you both. Thank you all. That's very good. Chief, we're looking forward to moving ahead. It's exciting.
Perfect. Perfect. We'll get with Cameron and our lawyer and we'll get it all worked out.
Okay,
Thank you. Appreciate your efforts.
thanks for being on. Okay, this one, I'll try and be, this one, I don't know. I'm gonna run out of time, but we'll try. So, I'll try and do this at the highest level and then I'll let Polly help. So, in June, at the end of June of 2024, the Utah Local Government Trust changed its, well, it changed before the end of June, it changed its policy on covering land use towns for land use issues at ending June 30th, 2024. So therefore, in the cases we've had against us legally from various developers, the Utah Local Government Trust has assigned a legal team and covered us. Ending in June, they no longer do that. So we have to find another counsel to represent us in legal matters against the town when they go to court. We ran a RFP, identified 3 or 4 firms that brought forward their proposals for how they would help us. There was Jonathan, Jan, and myself on the committee. We reviewed those proposals, had meetings with each of the offering folks, and made the decision to recommend Fabian Van Cott as the firm that we want to go forward with. So this is the engagement agreement that we've got in place. This is specific to this case at this point, with the one case that we have coming up in January with Park City Mountain Building, Mustang Development, Park City Mountain Builders. And this was by a decision by the team to say, let's see how they do here. If we're happy with the work that they've done, then we can then, broaden this to be our litigation counsel for further cases. But right now we're using this as sort of a test case. I don't know, Polly, you want to take over from here? Have I already screwed it
Yeah,
up?
I think we can just keep it really high level. I mean, we need our current litigation counsel also is retiring. And so we're transitioning over, and these guys are very reputable, and I think they'll hopefully do great things for us. And so I hope that the council will vote to authorize the mayor to enter into this contract.
I would note that this particular contract does not have a not to exceed provision. And while I'm okay with that, I'm only okay with that to the extent that we get monthly reports on expenses, spending, anticipated future expenses. I want to make sure that we keep a close eye on the costs of this thing.
Well, and also, we can add into this draft, as you know, we got this very late today. We will add in a draft of a not to exceed for the budgeted amount. So we'll amend this agreement to put that in.
Yeah, I would still like to see monthly reports on the expenses because we don't have a
Sure.
traditional not to exceed. We have one that could consume our potentially entire litigation budget.
Absolutely. I think Jan is on that.
Okay, but we can certainly agree to approve for the mayor to enter an agreement for litigation counsel with Ferdinand Cott, recognizing that we're adding language for not to exceed budget, and we will um, add monthly reports from staff on as we get the billings. That we won't put the monthly report into the language, but they will provide, they'll be billing us monthly anyway, so that comes with it. We just need to share it with the council.
Monthly. So
Other
with all those incorporated, I would move that we give the mayor the authority to enter into an agreement subject to the discussions we've had here this evening.
Question though, do we have a budget line for outside counsel versus in-house counsel?
No, we do not.
So how are we, I do think we have to, you know, I would hate for them to run the meter and then suddenly we can't pay Polly.
So Polly is pretty constant in her billing, but I plan to do monthly reports. We're moving into more budget regulation with our new hire, our new treasurer. So expect more reporting to that extent.
So, Chris, we don't know, like all the court cases, we don't know, okay? We go to court, there's a continuance, something else comes up, it gets pushed out, they require more information, whatever. I mean, I think we can select from our budget a number based on, as Jan says, sort of Polly and Cameron's, monthly fees, and put something there, but we can use it as a stopgap. But we'll see how it goes if we go to court. But I think we can come up with something to satisfy the not to exceed value. I think we need to. So.
And with a monthly, of course, we'll know how we're doing.
Yeah.
We'll know if we run into a problem, then we're going to have to deal with it.
Yep.
And Jonathan, sorry, I got this late today, so I didn't really, I just kind of skimmed it while we're talking here. I see a retainer in here, but the retainer doesn't kick in until kind of we have a case to work on from what I'm gathering here. I'm assuming, Jonathan, that you and Polly have agreed that this is good language here on some additional stuff like the retainer. Does that make sense?
Polly, you want to address that?
Yeah, I will review it very closely, and if there are issues with it, we won't proceed or we will bring it back. But I only looked at it high level as well because of the lateness that we got it. But we will make sure that it's a good contract for the town.
So I think, I mean, the challenge here, guys, and people, is that the court date is January 13th or 14th. Can't remember exactly. And we need to get this council working on this if they're going to represent us in court, because we basically have a month, and 2 weeks of that is Christmas.
Okay, well, let's do it then.
So I think I'm more than comfortable suggesting that Polly and Jonathan have the skill base to help us finalize the final agreement. What we want to do is tell these guys we intend to work with them. The council approved it. And we have a few tweaks to the language we need to work out. So they can get started on doing their homework. So Jonathan, if are there more questions or?
No, I just said that makes sense.
Otherwise, Jonathan,
Yeah.
you want to remake your motion?
Sure. I would, I would move that we give the mayor the authority to enter into this contract, subject to the discussions we've had here this evening and Polly's ultimate approval of the terms.
Okay. Anyone want to second that?
I'll second.
Thank you, Chris. Ralph?
Yes.
Thank you. Carol?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
And Jonathan?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes to allow the mayor to move forward. At this point in time, we have completed the public portion of the agenda and have a need to move to a closed executive session for discussion of pending reasonably imminent litigation, personnel matters, deployment of security personnel, devices or systems, and or sale acquisition of real property as needed. And I would, if you're okay, I need a motion to close and move to executive.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Okay, Jonathan,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
okay, Ralph,
Yes.
Carol.
Yes.
Okay, do we have a different number for this particular one when you sent out that note, Alicia, or is it the same one, just me taking over?
It's the same one. I can kick people off and stop the recording and the streaming if you want. And then you can restart the recording, or if you want to just everybody jump off and then only those invited jump back on. It's up to
Well,
you.
if you make me host, then we can do that.
Okay. Give me 1 second to get everything shut off.
Okay, so